is the one everyone's gunning for. I've been there enough. I've been there enough to know how to get there. So, number one, someone actually did a full statistical analysis of this, and I can't find it anywhere, but post at good times. So, posting on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is the key. If you're really, really serious about it. You can post when you want, but the Friday and Saturday are the ones with the most stories posted. There's less exposure time for your story on the front page on those days, and you have more competition generally. So that's what I would advise, if you're really gunning for a feature position. Put your stories in groups. If you have a Princess Luna story, put your story in all the Princess Luna groups. People are going to read it, and then it's another way to get more readers. Cover art is so important. You need to have cover art. No one reads stories that doesn't have cover art. Even if it's just a clip from the show that you stole off Google Images, put it on. Give it something. And then you can add featured other places like EQD. Beware of EQD. Here is my story on this. So I submitted my Civil War fic to EQD. And they're like, oh, this is funny and unique and cool. And I'm like, yeah, like we'll post it. We just have a couple of things you need to change about the story first, just like grammatical stuff, make sure. And most of it was pretty good. Most of it was, oh, you should use this word instead of that word. I'm like, oh yeah, that fits better. Or, this is the wrong preposition. Oh, you got me. Yeah, totally. And then I got to the point where I had one of the characters say the word whoa. And the pre-reader took issue with how I spelled the word whoa. I don't know if you guys know this or not. Whoa is almost like an onomatopoeia. It's a sound, and he demanded that I spell whoa W-H-O-A and not W-O-A-H. And I was like, oh, you mean Wahoa? I got so tilted I just never finished it. So I've actually never been featured on EQD. I could have been, but I was so tilted that I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm seething. And it wasn't like just letting you know. He was like very, very snooty about it. And I'm like, don't you get snooty with me. That's not how we do this. So, just watch out for EQD. They're picky, and even the stuff they post on there is sometimes not as good as the stuff that's just on the feature on FimFiction. So. Okay, community collaboration, super crucial. Make friends. They're going to be your collaborators, your editors, your friends, your people who show up at your panels, at conventions. Those are those people. So really good resources to have. Collaborating with another writer, famous last words right now on something that'll be out in a while. We're slow going on it, but it's fun to do that. Enter your stories into contests. I've won a contest. I should have won another contest. I've been in a couple others. It's fun stuff. You get a little exposure. Help others out when they ask for help. If they need editing, do that, et cetera, et cetera. Promote others, when they have a good story out. Put on a blog post. Say, this guy put out something awesome. Host panels at conventions. Get everyone to follow you in the room. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's your keyword. So ultimately, you have to write good stories, and the way to do that is write stuff you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about something, you're not going to put time in it. You should want to work on the story. You should desire to see what people say about it when it comes out. It should be something you're really passionate about, because that's when you're going to get the best quality stories out of what you have. And if you have to just take breaks, come back later. Don't push yourself. Don't write when you're tired. Don't write when you don't want to. That's the sort of stuff. It's very common sense. Okay, so we have some examples of good writing here. Milo Dashi by Rob Caccarin. Classic. Everyone's heard of that. He has favorited many of my stories. I feel touched by a celebrity in a way. So theme and tone are the big strengths he has here. So the idea here is this whole theme of family, and there's even, I've heard a whole bunch of different takes on it. There's a theme of loss. People think it's more about loss than it is about a family thing. People debate about it. There's this beautiful tone that just drives everything home. It's great. Every last bit by the Descendant. Dialogue is pretty good. Not the best I've seen. Pretty good dialogue. It's worth the commendation. And the character development is phenomenal. The point of this story is there's this auction to bring the Philly Scouts to some camp, and Rainbow Dash auctions off a kiss, and
and nobody.
Yeah, so they're all a bunch of guys in the audience say a bunch of terrible things, and Spike loses it and uses all the bits he'd saved up to buy a date with Rarity to get a kiss from Rainbow Dash instead. And then it cuts into the second half where they're talking before they actually kiss. And Spike is in this beautiful thing about how he says he has all these mother characters in his life, but he's never had a father character, someone to really be a dad to him. And he's so I had to be that dad and do what I had to be done. And I'm like, holy, this is good. This is really good. I can't think of this. So it's worth a read if you got time. I think it's a good one. Heart Invasion 101 by my boy Famous Last
I
Words.
haven't read that.
It's a classic. It's a Spike final ship fic. And
He should Spike with everything.
yeah, he does. Well, that's the point. I mean, it's trash in the sense that it's a Spike final ship fic, but it's really good trash in the sense that the dialogue between the characters is on point. He nails it. It's beautiful. They interact in an awesome way. You're like, I could totally see this happening. Like, I could totally see this happening. And the tone again is really good with that because he keeps it where it's funny where it's funny. It gets more serious where it needs to be serious. The voice is just great and everything. If you are feeling like it's a Friday night and you have a 6-pack of beers next to you, you're like, I'm looking for a fic to read.
Once a bit longer, you should try his blonde moments.
Yeah, that's
the one he's ready.
It's a good one. So, and then I'm going to plug myself because, you know, why not? I'm here.
Shameless plug.
So I wrote a story, for December, I was like, I'm going to write a bunch of stories where A Christmas Carol is the main point of each of the stories. So first one I did, I was like, I'm going to do Baby It's Cold Outside, but instead of some dude and some chick, it's going to be a human in Equestria in the castle, and the princesses are trying to snuggle with him overnight. And he's just trying to leave, but they're like, no, fam, it's cold. So I did that, and it was killer. And it's one of my most popular stories. And the reason why is because it's just a super unique premise. No one's done that. It's Christmas time, it's a carol fic, it's something people want to read. You're like, what's going on here? So it's from that point, it's really a premise that people get attracted to. So that's an example of something you should think about. The dialogue, I think, is pretty good, and I put a lot of voice into it, because it's a place you can put a lot of voice into. You're sitting there and you're like, as an author, I'm going to leave my fingerprints all over this piece of work. No one could write it like I could. And so I did, you know? And that's an example of that. It's not going to win any Nobel Prizes ever. But it's an example of a story that got popular and is a fun read. And, you know, yeah. All right, questions? You want to read some stories? What we got? We got time. We're done. Yeah, what's up?
What would you recommend, like, just, like, from your perspective or point, like, personally for first person or third person?
So it all depends on what you want the reader to feel. So, like if you are, let's see here. What would your example be? What are you thinking of writing?
An OC story.
Okay, so an OC story, that's a good example of a potential for a good use of a first person. I'm not the biggest fan of first person because I feel it sometimes can make the reader feel like they're removed, but you're writing from the perspective of an OC, it's your OC, so you can write A, I think better from that perspective as just a writer, and B, the reader's getting to know the character from a first person perspective. So they're saying, okay, this person's telling me a story, I'm going to listen, as opposed to there's a fly on the wall, tell me about this character that I've never seen before that is some guy made. So I think that's a good example of probably a first person. It depends on what you're trying to do with it, but I think first person probably good for that.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I just asked because, like, I have 3 OCs that would be in the story.
Okay.
I don't know, like, if it would be better if it was third person or if it would be first person.
So if it's going to be all of them interacting together,
Yeah.
third person's probably better, just because you can tell the perspective from everyone, as opposed to just from inside of one pony talking to 2 other ponies. So in that circumstance, if it's all about that, instead of one pony going and meeting 6 or 7 others, and it's all from their perspective, third person's probably better for that. Yeah. Yeah.
What's a good way to get a reader invested in an OC before they just decide, oh, this is an OC fic and that's it?
So I would say there's probably 2 or 3 different ways you go about it. One, you could do it by point of view. You could write them in as an OC. Put them, you are this person. Okay, now I'm invested. Another one is you can use canon characters like gateway drugs. And I'm very serious about that. That's how, like, you know, Nyx, that OC, I forget what story that is, I've actually never read it. But huge OC, very popular now, and it's because it's like, oh yeah, I was adopted by Princess Luna, and like Twilight teaches me stuff, and like, you know, if it's an OC being adopted by 2 other OCs, no one cares. But if it's an OC being adopted by a canon character, you're like, okay, I'm invested in that canon character, and she's invested in that character, ergo, I am now invested.
Past Sins is the name of the fic.
What?
Past Sins.
Past Sins, that's right, Past Sins, that's right. So, yeah, something like that would be interesting. And then, you know, another thing is just hook them with some really interesting premise, you know.
That's how they.
Or combine the two. You know, maybe it's something about like, oh, I'm a new farmhand on Applejack's farm. But little does she know that I hate apples. And you're like, ah! All right, let's see how this plays out. So that's something like that.
I would probably read that.
Yeah, you know, the people...
Just to see
Someone
Applejack
write
get
that down.
so
Someone needs
peeved.
to-
Exactly, and you do it from a first person. You combine all three. You're like, all right, Applejack's in this. I know Applejack. I'm, you know, you're sitting there and you're like, all right, he's telling me about himself as a first person character. Okay, I'm getting into this now. All right, so at least I'm hearing a story. And we got a little bit of spice coming through the finish. What's going to happen? That's something like that. So yeah, think about it from what you're doing. Yeah.
Any examples of stories of what not to do?
Oh.
He was waiting for this.
You should do this, by the way. I wrote this story
Putting on the Ritz.
after the
That's a good
election, and
taco
there's this
song.
whole thing about election hacking in Russia, and I'm like, you know what? Putin needs to hack Equestria. And so I had it, and it was just phenomenal. It was just beautiful.
Jeez, you need to get along with Reed.
It got a little spicy because some people were like, Russia is terrible. And I'm like, dude, it's pony fan fiction, bro. Like, chill out.
Was this the one that linked to the Russian pony fiction website?
I don't know. I think it was actually a different one. I think it was the one that, I think it was Human Skull outside, actually, because I had a guy do a Russian translation of that. He was like, can I do a Russian translation of this? I'm like, yes, you can. Are you kidding? All right, first of all, before anything happens, I'm going to immediately turn off the Demature because this is a pre-8 p.m. panel, just in case. So let's find... Oh, you know what? I know exactly who we have to go to. There's this writer called Evictus on FimFiction, and he posts stuff all the time, and it's always terrible. And I feel bad because he's a nice guy, and he's just writing. And people immediately download all of his stories without reading them. They comment. They're like, "Stop! Get off this site!" I'm like, "Bro, he's just a bad writer. It doesn't have anything, you know, on you." So just here we go. When Rarity and Sweetie Belle hang out at home, they hang out, but soon their relaxing day turns into a tickle session. So we have a run-on sentence. There is no period at the end of the sentence, and that's just the description. That's not where I'm in the story right now, and as you can see, the ratio is not good on this. So, and there is a reason for that. I mean, actually, hold on. Whoa, what is this? A positive like-dislike ratio? I'm gonna have to read. Hold on. From Evictus? I'm stunned. So, Rarity was in her room sewing, wrong form of the word sewing, a pattern as her sister had just got back from school and was now in her room. She wondered how her sister was doing as she wasn't here to greet her sister at the door, so she went to check on her sister. She walked to her sister's room to make sure she wasn't hungry. When she got to her sister's room, she saw her sister sitting in her... So, the word sister is like 6 or 7 times used in that paragraph. So, you know... So, it's an example of... You know, don't do that. The word here is misspelled. That's pretty bad. So stuff like that. I mean,
It just gets worse.
you know. And he is a really super nice guy. And people, I've actually stuck up for him in comments before because people are sometimes just so nasty to him. I'm like, he didn't do anything to you personally. It's just not good fiction. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, you know. So yeah. Anyways, there's some of the fictions I wrote that I thought are good. These have audio readings. Anyway, yeah.
Like the Rarity artwork there up there.
Yeah, that's really old artwork actually. And I went on DeviantArt and asked the artist, I'm like, can I use this? And they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, nice. So I just linked it here. Most of the time, if you just ask artists, they're happy to let you use it. You can also just use it and not tell them and link it to them. That's still bad form.
Just make sure that you link.
If you link, as long as you're linking, you're fine. If you don't link, that's bad, really bad form. If you link and don't ask, it's like sort of bad form, and you should take it down if they ask you to. But if you ask them permission, like 99% of the time, they're like, yeah, fam, are you kidding? Just link it. That's cool.
You can find a good Rarity picture where they'll give you permission. That shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that's not a problem. So, and then I commission.
Not for mine, but I just happen to like the look of that.
So I have if we go to my stories here, I have a whole bunch of art that I've actually commissioned. Some of them are screenshots from the show. I probably can't do that. There's alcohol in that story, and it's before 8 p.m.
It's probably okay looking at the crowd.
This is a fine one because
Comments.
This is a good one. So I commissioned this, where Celestia becomes a cop in Cleveland, and she's just terrible at it. But I commissioned that. I commissioned that art because there was no immediately available pictures of Celestia as a police officer, so I had to commission that. Here's an example of another just screen cap from the show. I did a Cloud Chaser and Flitter fic. And it's just a screen cap from the episode of the tornado. Let's see.
Hurricane Fluttershy.
Yes, thank you. I used to know all the names of the episodes, and now
What is that
there's so
Kim-
many of them that I just run together.
What is the Kim Jong-un one?
That's Kim Jong-un Comics Equestria. That is just a picture I found of Kim Jong-un that I wrote it. I'm like, it's going to be just as big as the Putin hacks Equestria and Trump bans ponies from Equestria. And then people were like, yeah, that's okay. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So I
I'll
wrote
stop.
another mature Trump and Celestia thing.
Oh, did you?
That the title I can't say at this panel.
So,
But at the end, it was worth it.
was it worth it at the end?
At the end, yes.
I had-
'Cause I don't like Trump,
Okay.
and he got what he deserved.
Okay, fair enough.